The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I was already awake, holding my second cup of coffee and watching snow drift past my kitchen window in Toronto. My phone lit up with my brother's name, Mark. We hadn't spoken in 3 weeks, not since our last tense visit to Mom's nursing home. "Daniel," he said. His voice carried a fake calm that immediately made me uneasy. "I have some difficult news. Mom passed away last night, peacefully, in her sleep." I slowly placed my coffee mug on the counter, my hands suddenly shaky. "What? When?" I asked. "I was planning to see her today." "The funeral is Friday," he continued, cutting me off. His tone shifted, turning cold and almost professional. "I've already handled all the arrangements. And Daniel, about Mom's estate. The will is very clear. Everything goes to me. The house, the cottage in Muskoka, her investments, all of it. You get nothing. Don't even think about contesting it." Then the call ended. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at my phone in disbelief. My mother was gone, just like that. And Mark's first concern wasn't compassion or sympathy. It was making sure I knew I was getting nothing. No apology, no mention that she passed peacefully, just a warning. Something felt very, very wrong. Let me explain. My name is Daniel Harrison. I'm 64 years old, a retired civil engineer who spent 4 decades designing infrastructure across Ontario. My wife, Laura, passed away 3 years ago after battling cancer. We had one daughter, Rachel, who is now 28 and works as a marine biologist in Vancouver. After Laura died, I focused on volunteering and staying close to my mother. She helped me through my grief. My brother Mark is 4 years younger than me, 58. We were close growing up, playing hockey in the driveway of our old home in North York. But as adults, we drifted apart. Mark became a real estate agent, married Susan, and had 2 children. On the surface, everything seemed fine. But over time, I noticed things. Mark was always chasing the next big deal, always stretched thin financially. His business went through rough periods. At family dinners, there were quiet conversations about failed investments and about Susan working double shifts as a nurse to keep things afloat. Our mother, Eleanor Harrison, was 85 and sharp as ever for most of her life. A retired school teacher, she could recite poetry from memory and beat anyone at Scrabble. She lived independently in her Richmond Hill home until about 9 months ago, when Mark insisted she needed additional care. He suggested becoming her power of attorney to manage bills and medical appointments. Mom hesitated, but Mark was persuasive. He was her youngest son, after all. That's when everything changed. Within weeks of Mark getting POA, Mom was suddenly diagnosed with severe dementia. He moved her into a nursing home called Maple Grove Care Center, saying she could no longer live alone. When I visited, I was shocked. My once lively, witty mother sat in a chair, staring blankly. She didn't recognize me. She barely spoke. When she did speak, her words were confused and broken. "Is this really possible?" I asked her doctor, Dr. Andrew Whitman. "She was fine just 2 months ago." "Dementia can progress very quickly in some cases," he replied calmly. "Cognitive decline at her age can be sudden." It didn't sit right with me. I still visited Mom 3 times a week. Even when she didn't know who I was, I held her hand and told her about Rachel and my volunteer work. Mark visited too, but much less often. When he did, he always seemed rushed, constantly checking his watch. Standing in my kitchen with Mark's words echoing in my mind, I finally understood what I'd been ignoring. This wasn't grief. This was greed. I immediately called Maple Grove Care Center. "I'm calling about my mother, Eleanor Harrison," I said when someone answered. "I was told she passed away last night." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but I don't have any record of that. Let me check her room." My heart started racing. A few minutes later, the nurse returned. "Sir, your mother is fine. She's having breakfast right now. Is there some confusion?" I sat down heavily. "Please," I said, "don't tell anyone I called, especially not my brother." I hung up and immediately called my daughter. Rachel answered on the 3rd ring, sounding concerned. "Dad, it's barely 7 there. What's wrong?" "Your uncle just told me Grandma died," I said. "But she didn't. She's alive." There was a long silence. "Dad," she finally said, "that's elder abuse. That's fraud." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I replied, but I have to act fast. He says the funeral is Friday. That's 3 days from now. After speaking with Rachel, I spent the morning making calls. First, I contacted a lawyer I had worked with before, Michael Reynolds, and explained everything. "Daniel, this is serious," he said. "If your brother is abusing power of attorney or misrepresenting your mother's condition, we're talking about potential criminal charges, but you'll need solid evidence." Next, I hired a private investigator, Emily Carter. She came to my house that afternoon, a sharp woman in her mid-40s with gray streaks in her dark hair. "How long has your brother had POA?" she asked. "About 9 months," I said. "Before that, my mother was fully competent. She volunteered at the library and played bridge twice a week. Then suddenly, she couldn't even remember her own name." Emily nodded. "I've seen cases like this. Give me 48 hours. I'll look into your mother's finances." That evening, I drove to Maple Grove without telling anyone. Mom was sitting in her usual chair by the window, watching the sky darken. Her hair was thinner now, her face more lined. But something felt different. She seemed less sedated, more aware. "Mom," I said softly, pulling a chair beside her. She turned slowly. Her familiar brown eyes met mine. For a brief moment, there was something there. Recognition, maybe. "It's me, Daniel," I said. She blinked, her lips moving as if she wanted to speak. Then a nurse entered to check her vitals, and the moment disappeared. I drove home through the snow, my thoughts racing. What was Mark planning? A fake funeral to convince everyone Mom was dead? Then transferring all her assets while people believed she was gone? It sounded insane, and yet disturbingly clever. The next morning, Emily called. "Daniel, you need to sit down." I gripped the phone. "What did you find?" "Your brother has been very busy. Over the past 8 months, he transferred approximately $280,000 from your mother's accounts into his own. He also sold her Muskoka cottage to a numbered company. I'm still tracing it, but I strongly suspect he's behind it. She's also been using your mother's credit cards," Emily continued. "And Daniel, there's more. The doctor who diagnosed your mother's dementia, Dr. Andrew Whitman, he went to college with your brother. They've been close friends for over 30 years. My stomach turned. "So Mom's dementia could be medication-induced," I said slowly. "If she's being overprescribed sedatives or antipsychotics, that would explain the sudden decline, the blank stares, the confusion." Emily didn't hesitate. "Exactly. That could be attempted murder, and that's what we need to prove. I've requested copies of her medical records, but that takes time. For now, you need to visit your mother again, document everything, and if you can, record conversations with your brother. Ontario is a one-party consent province." That afternoon, I returned to Maple Grove. I had my phone ready, prepared to record anything suspicious. But when I reached Mom's room, it was empty. A nurse I didn't recognize was changing the sheets. "Where's my mother?" I asked, panic rising. "Oh, Mr. Harrison," she said casually. "Your brother took her out for a drive. He said she needed some fresh air." My blood ran cold. "When?" "About an hour ago. I ran to the parking lot, but Mark's black Mercedes was already gone. I called him. No answer. I called again. And again. 5 times. Nothing. 3 hours later, they finally returned. Mark helped Mom out of the car, supporting her as she slowly shuffled back toward her room. She looked exhausted, disoriented. When Mark spotted me waiting in the hallway, he didn't even try to hide his irritation. "Daniel," he said sharply, "what are you doing here?" "You told me Mom died yesterday," I said. "Yet here she is." He actually laughed. "Oh, that? Yeah. Sorry about the confusion. I meant to call you back. False alarm. She had a bad episode. You know how dementia is. Where did you take her today?" "Just for a drive. She likes getting out." "Really?" I said. "Because she looks like she can barely stand." His expression hardened. "Back off, Daniel. I'm her power of attorney. I make decisions about her care, not you. If you don't like it, get a lawyer." He brushed past me, guiding Mom into her room. I watched from the doorway as he settled her into the chair, speaking to her in a low voice I couldn't hear. Then he walked away without even looking at me. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello?" Silence. Then a whisper. Faint. Strained. A woman's voice. Daniel. Yes. Who is this? Daniel. It's me. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Who? It's your mother. I froze. That was impossible. Mom was inside the building. I glanced at the screen. Blocked number. Daniel, listen carefully, she whispered. I don't have much time. I need you to come to my room tonight, after 10. Make sure Mark isn't here, and don't tell anyone about this call. The line went dead. I stood in the parking lot as snow fell around me, staring at my phone like it had turned into something unreal. Mom couldn't have called me. She could barely form sentences, and yet that voice, quiet and weak, sounded like her. The real her, the sharp, clear-minded woman I'd known my entire life. I waited in my car until after 10 p.m., watching the nursing home. Mark's Mercedes was long gone. The night shift had taken over, just a skeleton crew. Using my key code, I entered through the side door and walked to Mom's room. She was sitting up in bed, the lights dim. When I stepped inside, she turned toward me, and in that low light, I saw it immediately. Her eyes were clear, focused, fully present. Close the door, she said calmly. Not the confused mumbling I'd heard for months. A normal, steady voice. I shut the door, my hands trembling. Mom, what's going on? Sit down, sweetheart, she said gently. We don't have much time. I sat, completely stunned. Are you okay? What's happening? She smiled. Actually smiled. That familiar, knowing smile from my childhood. The one she used when she caught Mark and me sneaking cookies before dinner. I'm fine, Daniel. I've been fine this entire time. My head spun. But the dementia, the diagnosis, you didn't even recognize me. Because I was pretending. The room felt like it tilted. Pretending? She reached for my hand. Her grip was strong, steady, nothing like the frail hands I'd been holding for months. Daniel, I'm 85 years old, she said. I've been thinking a lot about mortality, about what happens when I'm gone, and I realized I needed to know something. I needed to know which of my sons would truly care for me. Not for my money, not for an inheritance, but out of love. So you faked dementia to test us. When Mark suggested becoming my power of attorney, I saw an opportunity, she said. I agreed, but I also consulted my own lawyer, someone Mark doesn't know about. I placed most of my assets into an irrevocable trust weeks before he got POA. The accounts he controls? I left just enough to see what he'd do. I couldn't process it. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Her eyes softened. Because I had to test both of you. I needed to see who would still visit me when I couldn't give anything back, who would hold my hand even when I didn't know their name. She squeezed my hand. And Daniel, you came 3 times a week. You sat with me. You talked to me, even when I pretended not to recognize you. Tears rolled down my face as she spoke. Of course you came. You're my son. I always knew that. But Mark... She slowly shook her head. Mark failed you, Daniel. Worse than I ever expected. I've been keeping records of everything. Every time he pressured me to sign documents. Every moment he lost his temper when I acted confused. Every item he removed from this room, assuming I wouldn't notice. I documented it all. The $280,000 he took came from the accounts I deliberately left open to him. I wanted to see how far he would go. I let him dig his own grave. Mom, he told me you were dead. He's planning a funeral for Friday. She nodded. I know. He told me today during our drive. He said I was going to have an accident, that I'd pass away peacefully. He wanted me to sign everything first, transferring my assets, but I refused and pretended not to understand. He's running out of time, and he knows it. This is insane. It's dangerous. We need to call the police right now. No, not yet. Michael Reynolds, your lawyer. He's been my lawyer too for the past month. We already have a plan. But I need you to trust me, Daniel. Can you do that? I squeezed her hand. Always. Over the next 2 days, we put everything in motion. Michael brought in the police quietly. They agreed to let Mom's plan continue so Mark could be caught with undeniable evidence. Hidden cameras were installed in Mom's room, tiny devices no bigger than buttons. We coordinated with trusted nursing home staff, and Mom continued her act, appearing confused and fragile whenever Mark was around. Mark visited twice more. The first time he brought paperwork, transfer documents for Mom's house. She scribbled something unreadable and pretended she didn't understand. His frustration was obvious, barely contained. "Just sign clearly, Mom," he snapped. "I'm trying to help you." The second visit was Thursday night. He brought a syringe. I watched the footage later, and it made me physically sick. He told Mom it was her medication. When it was tested afterward, we learned it was a massive dose of sedatives, enough to knock out a horse. Mom pretended to take it, but discreetly palmed the pills. "Tomorrow," Mark said softly, smoothing her hair. "Tomorrow, you'll finally be at peace, Mom. No more suffering." Friday morning arrived. Mark had booked Thornhill Funeral Home. Notices were sent. Relatives were called. Cousins I hadn't seen in years contacted me with condolences. I played along. Yes, the funeral was at 2 p.m. Yes, it was sudden. The funeral home was full. Mark spared no expense. Flowers everywhere. A large photo of Mom from 20 years ago displayed at the front. He'd even written an obituary filled with sentimental language about a beloved mother who passed after a long illness. I sat in the front row with Rachel, who had flown in that morning. Mark sat across the aisle with Susan and their children. His face was composed, perfectly sorrowful. Susan kept touching his arm, comforting him. The kids looked genuinely heartbroken. They loved their grandmother. At exactly 2 p.m., Mark stood up to deliver the eulogy. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and began. "We're here today to honor the life of Eleanor Margaret Harrison, born February 14, 1939, passed away January 7, 2025. He spoke about her being an incredible woman, a teacher for 35 years, a devoted mother. He claimed that in her final months, she trusted him to care for her, to manage her affairs, to protect her interests." He paused, his voice shaking with emotion I now knew was fake. "She always loved me the most," he continued. "She told me that many times. She knew I was the responsible one. She wanted me to have her house, her cottage, everything she worked for, because she trusted me to take care of the family." I stood up. Every head in the room turned. "That's interesting, Mark," I said loudly. "Do you want to tell everyone where Mom actually is right now?" Confusion rippled through the crowd. Mark's face drained of color. "Daniel, sit down," he hissed. "This isn't the time." "Where's the body, Mark?" I said. "Where's Mom's body?" "She's being cremated," he snapped. "We discussed this." "Really?" I replied. "Because I called the crematorium. They don't have her." Susan grabbed his arm. "Mark, what is he talking about?" At that moment, the doors at the back of the funeral home opened. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was my mother. She walked slowly with a walker, but her back was straight and her eyes were sharp. 2 uniformed police officers followed behind her. The room exploded into chaos. People stood up, gasping. Someone screamed. Mark's daughter burst into tears. Mom made her way down the aisle. When she reached Mark, she stopped. "Hello, my son," she said clearly. "I'm not dead." She looked straight at him. "But your inheritance is." Mark's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. "Mom, you're confused," he stammered. "You're sick." "This is a mistake. I'm not confused, Glenn. I've been recording everything for the past 8 months. Every threat, every theft, every attempt to make me sign documents transferring my assets to you, every time you drugged me to keep me compliant." She turned to the assembled crowd. Many were crying, some in relief, others in shock. "I'm sorry for deceiving all of you," Mom said. "But I had to know the truth. I had to see what my sons would do when they thought I was helpless. And what I found broke my heart." One of the officers stepped forward. "Glenn Harrison, you are under arrest for elder abuse, theft over $5,000, fraud, and attempted probate fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Glenn tried to run. He pushed past the officer, but only made it 3 steps before he was tackled and handcuffed. His kids sobbed. Patricia stood frozen, her face a mask of horror. As they led Glenn away, he shouted, "I'm your son! You can't do this to me! I needed that money!" Mom watched him go, tears running down her face, but her voice was steady. "You were my son," she said. "But you stopped being my child the moment you decided my life was worth less than my bank account." The legal proceedings took months. Glenn initially tried to fight the charges, claiming Mom was incompetent and that he was only trying to help. But the evidence was overwhelming. Video footage of him forcing her to sign documents, audio recordings of threats, bank records proving theft, and Dr. Whitmore's testimony about prescribing dangerous medications at his request. In the end, Glenn pleaded guilty, 5 years in prison, ordered to repay the $280,000 plus $50,000 in fines. He lost his real estate license permanently. Patricia divorced him and gained full custody of the kids. They were devastated, but Emma and I tried to remain a stable presence in their lives. Dr. Whitmore lost his medical license for knowingly prescribing harmful drugs to an elderly patient without proper evaluation. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario was strict, and rightfully so. Mom moved into a small condo near my house. She wanted to be close to family and Emma when she visited. We had dinner together twice a week. She volunteered again, this time at an elder abuse prevention center, sharing her story to help others recognize the warning signs. We established the Helen Harrison Elder Protection Fund, using part of the money Glenn had returned. It provides legal aid to seniors fighting financial abuse and funds educational programs on POA responsibilities. One evening, about a year later, Mom and I sat on my back porch, watching another Toronto snowfall. She held a mug of tea, wrapped in a thick blanket. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "The way you tested us?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my own son could do what he did. But Douglas, I don't regret finding out the truth. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing to give. You gave me everything that mattered." I said, "You taught me integrity. You taught me that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard." She smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "And that's why you passed the test. Not just because you visited me, though that mattered, but because even when you thought I was gone, even when you thought you were getting nothing, you fought for what was right. You didn't let Glenn get away with it. You protected me even when I couldn't protect myself. That's what family does. Real family. Blood doesn't make you family, Douglas. Love does. Choice does. Showing up does. Glenn was my blood, but he stopped being family the moment he decided I was just an asset to liquidate. We sat together in silence, watching the snow settle on the fence and the bare trees. Inside, I could hear my phone buzzing. Emma checking in from Vancouver, Mom's lawyer with updates on the charitable fund. Life moving forward. Mom looked at me, eyes sharp and clear. "You know what the saddest part is?" she asked. "What?" I said. If Glenn had only asked, if he had been honest about his financial problems, I would have helped him. Not with everything, not enabling poor choices, but I would have helped. Instead, he chose to steal. He treated me like I was already dead, and that choice cost him everything. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand. This remarkable woman had taught me more about strength and dignity in the past year than in all the years before. She had survived betrayal by her own son, orchestrated her own rescue, and emerged determined to help others. That's the thing about family, the real kind. It's not about blood, it's not about inheritance, it's about showing up. It's about loving someone even when they can't give you anything back. It's about fighting for what's right, even if it means standing against your own brother. Glenn made his choices. He chose greed over love, theft over integrity, and he's paying the price. In prison, in the loss of his children's respect, his wife, his career, and his mother's love. As for me, I gained something far more valuable than any inheritance. Real years with my mother, talking, laughing, healing. I learned that when tested, I did the right thing, and I got the chance to be part of something bigger, helping other families avoid what we went through. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. True family protects the vulnerable, and sometimes, the bravest thing an 85-year-old woman can do is pretend to be helpless, just to discover who will truly help her when she can't help herself. That's what I learned from Helen Harrison, my mother, my hero, the woman who taught me that dignity matters more than dollars, and that real love shows up even when there's nothing to gain.